Hi, are you thinking of restarting your career but don't know where to begin? Do you see other women returning and you wonder how they must be doing it? Are you curious to know what the recruiters look for when hiring a returning professional? Worry not, because this podcast is meant just for you.
Tune in to Flourish, a one of a kind podcast meant for people returning to work. This podcast will not just help you restart confidently, but also thrive and flourish in your second careers.
I am Selvakani Selvaraj, a corporate HR expert, a career coach, and a psychology practitioner.
And I'm Deepthi Rao, a tech professional, a return to work mentor, and a certified happiness coach. We are corporate professionals with over 40 years of collective experience. We know what it takes to build, pause, and rebuild a successful career, all the while being parents, caregivers, and family nurturers. We are delighted to share our experiences, both success and failures, our knowledge and expertise in this space for those restarting their careers. Welcome to the third episode of Season 1.
So I am ready, Deepthi. I want to get started today, let's say. But then where's my resume? I've got so many questions on how to build my resume that reflects my break and now my readiness to get back to work.
I'm sure this will be the next thing on your mind. Precisely why we have Pragati Sharma joining us here for sharing some useful, insightful thoughts on this most important part of the journey.
Hi, welcome Pragati.
Welcome, Pragati.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. So, introducing Pragati to our audience, she's the founder of i4 HR Consulting, a talent solutions company that works with more than 100 companies, including both startups and MNCs across India and international regions, helping them identify the right leadership talent for them. Earlier to this, she spent over 2 decades of talent acquisition and management in media, telecom, retail, e commerce, healthcare, and education across several regions, such as those of India, Middle East, and Africa.
She is here with us today to share tips and tricks of the resume for returnees. One thing that struck me about Pragati's company was that, it's an all women team of 20 full time consultants. Wow. Welcome to the show, Pragati. Amongst these all women team, I know there are a few returnees as well. So, Pragati, over to you.
Thanks, Deepthi. Yes, absolutely. We at I4HR Consulting prefer hiring women returning back to work. Why? Because their drive, their passion to prove themselves is a rare one to find anywhere else. Let me also share that we have 3 women today in their late 30s, early 40s who joined us after a maternity break. And since the time they joined us, have doubled their pay.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, Pragati, tell us, I have a resume. I took a break, and now do I enhance it? Do I update it? I mean, of course, everyone knows the basic do's and don'ts like adding your contact information, location, clean formatting, spell check, grammar check. But over and above all this comes the piece of, let's say, decorating or camouflaging a career break. That brings us to the first question that is on top of my head. Whether should I camouflage my career break in the resume?
I would say sit down in a very quiet, peaceful place, gather your thoughts, right? You must mention your break in the resume, right? And let me try share from experience and live experiences for that matter on how it can be done so that you don't lose out on the opportunities just because you had a break. Okay. Firstly, mention the break. Secondly, mention the reason of the break in the most honest way possible, right? You have to positively reframe what you did in the break. Let me share very interesting instances where one profile that we got had a woman stating, worked long hours and committed to raising a healthy child. Now look at the sentence, right? What does it tell you? It tells you that she's open to working hard, and at the same time, she's developed a health consciousness, right? Today, we have femtech, women tech organizations at a seed stage, at a startup stage. Why would they not want to hire someone like her? Okay. Or, for example, I have raised my twins and I learned the art of multitasking with focus on child nutrition. Again, think about so many companies today that work in the maternity space or child nutrition space. Now, why would someone not want to hire this excellent experience, validate it, and use it for their growth?
Exactly. The idea is not to hide the career break, but also not highlight it so much that we lose out on the opportunities that would come along the way. In addition, I may have done several things, Pragati, like during the break as well, right? So, in essence, how should one factor this while writing the resume?
I remember my current HR consultant. So let me share again one of the most, I think, relatable examples of someone who during their break was raising their children, but also pursued Kathak and took it on the professional route. So she started taking exams, took it down as a serious vocation during that time, right? So she put that down in, as that experience with the degree that she attained at the end of the 2 or 3 years, if I remember correctly. Now, this experience, I would strongly suggest is a very, very positive note in the CV, right? So caught obviously our attention. And therefore would urge everyone to mention when they take up a hobby and earn a degree, for example. So if this was a hobby pursuit without seriousness, don't mention it. But if you achieved a certification or upskilled as we use it, please mention that. So many digital certifications that are taken these days, whether it's LinkedIn or universities or foreign certifications, please mention those, right? And also draw a parallel to the skill learned. For example, if you did an art course, apply for the, make it relevant to, let's say, a role in visual designing, okay? And how that has enhanced your experience and probably validate it for yourself also. For dancers, for example, dance is not just about the art, but it's also about discipline. It's also about putting in hard work. And so for this Kathak dancer, it meant that she is an all-round performer. So A ratings in her last couple of performance appraisals, and during the break, someone who pursued certification and did extremely well.
Yeah, sounds like a very useful set of examples for us to consider and apply that in our own individual experiences. Any other tips, Pragati, while writing the resume?
I think we underestimate sometimes or we shy away on the little things, right? So you usually will pivot away from the role that you were doing before maternity. So when you want to come back to the workforce, you tend to usually change the role. At least that's the trend we've seen. So it's important to highlight on any upskilling. And on the other hand, please understand, someone like me probably goes through at least 100 CVs every day. Now, if you were to write something that is not templatized, right, which is not copy pasted from Google, it would be amazing because these creative lines from you will catch attention. So a recruiter is so tired of looking at the same text, the same format, that anything personal and creative is so refreshing. So be confident that your skills are of value to the job that you are applying for, right? And may I also inform you that background checks and salary papers are always asked for at the end of the process. So let your resume have the correct facts, right? Such dates and durations and the years mentioned. Otherwise, please customize it and let it reflect you on that CV.
That's true, Pragati. Correct. It should be about me, right? It's not a copy paste from Google, like you mentioned, right? It should have the genuineness and what I actually bring to the role. That's interesting. But one thing, like how does this apply for varied lengths of break? Maybe, from a year to almost 9 to 10 years. Are these tips applicable for all different situations? What is your take on it, Pragati?
Pretty much, yes. See, any break which is up to maybe 2 or 3 years is absolutely normal or understandable or relatable, right? If let's say for whatever reason, and there's so many of them, right? Let's say it had to extend to more than 5, 6 years, maybe 10 years, right? I think the only thing that a recruiter needs to see if you have that longer break is that you're flexible. You realize that the world out there has changed, maybe, and you're open to it, right? Just the open mindedness is what a recruiter needs to see from someone who's coming back to work.
Got it. Now, shifting gears a little bit, Pragati, as an applicant, each one has their own myths about this applicant tracking system, famously called as ATS by the recruiters. There is this belief that, oh, if I have a word in my resume that says break, a career break, the system automatically sort of filters them out. And therefore, the resume wouldn't even come to the purview or the attention of the recruiter. Is that true?
No, I think it's more about how your resume looks more than the word break, Selva, right? So if you're applying for a relevant position, if you're applying for a role that your experience and profile matches, right? That's why they call it fitment. It will never be scraped, right? So be conscious of the keywords. Be mindful of not applying for a job that does not match your experience. So don't apply for a sales job if you're an application developer through an ATS, right? Also, every job that you apply to will be vis-a-vis a job description. So use the words in the job description to your advantage and see how you can make that fitment.
Yeah, that's aptly said, Pragati. The job description, the JD, is a true giveaway. Now, what does a recruiter look for in a CV? I've heard that it's just like 5 seconds, make or break, or what we call. So, how do you frame it, to catch the eye in that 5 seconds?
Yeah, it is a 5 second screening by a recruiter, at least in the first go, right? And therefore, very simply, the words that they are looking for, like we mentioned in the JD, are the words that should pop out from your resume. So if they're looking for sales, then let it be sales, business development, customer acquisition, so on and so forth. You should work on the resume summary, right? The first page for that matter is the most important one. So let your experience start from the most recent one to your first one. Always focus on your strengths. Let there be emphasis on something you can talk about, something you have achieved around, maybe rewarded on, even if it was long time back, but focus on your strengths. I always recommend that references are good. If you know someone working in the company, if you know someone who's an ex employee, if nothing of that sort, then please look at your mentors, mention maybe your ex boss. They're good, and if relevant to a job opening, they can work wonders. Always highlight your projects. A recruiter or a hiring manager wants to be certain that your work experience, the responsibility that you had, are relevant to the role that they are hiring for.
Right. Sounds like you're saying keep it real and compelling. Also, not to exaggerate to the point that it becomes a bit unbelievable and really trying to make an impression. So at that point, even if your resume cuts it through, the interviews become harder because then you have to justify your resume. So make it clear and unbelievable and really make it authentic. For instance, I've seen that, sometimes people are part of a particular project, but just to highlight it, they say, I've led the project. So when actually they possibly were just a team member only. So the idea is to keep it compelling, but keep it authentic.
That's correct. Yeah, Selva. Keeping it authentic, right, is very important even for us later to take it on in the interview phases. Now, on the other hand, right, what if my past experience is not relevant for the new opportunity I want to explore now? So, how do I take it forward with my CV?
Let me share a story here, and this is from someone who's part of my company today. This is someone who's probably in their late 30s, had a child, and I think in the last couple of years, they ran pre-COVID a retail outlet. You can draw a comparison to an apparel outlet, for example, that they ran and had a team of about 5-6 people. Successful business, very confident, but post COVID and obviously the baby, it became very difficult and they had to shut it down. So 2-3 years or even maybe a 4-year gap from their side, and they applied for a job to us. She came through a referral, if I remember correctly. But having said that, when we saw the profile, it had nothing relevant to human resources for us. It almost had nothing relevant to recruitment, talent management, even L&D. But we hired her, right? And so what did we find? Of course, she did go through about 2 or 3 rounds of interviews, but what did we like? What did we see in her profile? Very simple. We saw customer focus. We understood that the apparel business is a difficult one. Women are the most difficult customers to handle also. So if she had done that, customer focus would be very sharp. The second was she had managed teams, right? And even if the teams were 4-5 people, she would have had challenges there, maybe dealt with conflict, had situations where she had to take decisions, right? Third, of course, was communications. She was mature. We knew she could deal with clients both in a mature attitude, but at the same time, be able to communicate not just in the language, but articulated in a business-like way. So yeah, she got hired. And I think about 1.5 years down the lane today, she's one of our top performers. And I'm extremely proud to have her in the team. Right. So I think we should just draw that parallel and say, what change are you looking for? Are you clear on what roles you want to apply for? Just highlight the relevant areas, the relevant experience you have had. If not in skill, then in attitude. If not in attitude, then behavior, in leadership, vis-a-vis that role. And that should work for you.
That is so heartening to hear such stories, Pragati. It really brings home that you don't have to be that 100% perfect for the role, as long as you believe that you are right and share in clear terms how you are relevant for that role, and that's what the role of the resume itself. So clarity is the key there. Now, interestingly, it's always easier to build up the resume from a point of reference. Let's say I've had a copy of resume, I need to really edit it or make changes, customize it, and align it, and so on. How about situations where maybe I'm just a campus hire who I've not had any experience of writing a resume at all. I don't have a resume, or that my break was so long ago that I don't know where my resume is. I think it's better to start afresh and start from a clean slate. So where do I start from given that?
So we had a candidate called Rekha who came up with a similar situation, right? Um, and and someone with great achievements, someone with probably recommendations that would probably be enough. She would need to make a CV, right? I think you have to start somewhere, right? Um, you should what she did was very simple. I told her, why don't you just write a 2-page summary on just the journey of your life. You can break it into 2 or 3 years, right? As probably stages in your life, which is write me a story. Mention office changed, role changed, I had family issues, whatever comes to your mind. So when you have that basic 2-pager, come back to me. And lo and behold, when she came back to me, I think she already had a resume in her mind. So mostly it's about getting down to that activity, penning it down. After that, usually the run is pretty smooth.
Interesting. I like that concept, what you told of a storyline, right? That's exactly what it is about, right? When we sit down to think about what we've done, it's like everybody has a story to tell. And that probably removes the tension from my mind that I am not doing a CV right away. I'm writing first about my experiences. That's an interesting concept, Pragati. There are, and the next thing is like, there are of course a lot of tools available now, and what with chat gpt all around, what's your take on the usage of these tools for creating the cv?
So there are many tools available, right? For benchmarking of profile, make my resume builder. I mean, a lot of online and offline options available. My suggestion would be write that story first, then put it into an online, tool that probably just brings it out for you. But more importantly, if you are using outside professional help, right? And we do it at I4 Consulting also. You must block a session that is about you and talks for, or at least lasts for 40-45 minutes, where the person on the other side or the consultant is trying to understand you first. And when I say understand you, it pretty much means understanding highlights of your career, your strengths as an individual, and really brings those out. And more about the self-awareness process there, which is extremely important. At the same time, look at benchmark profiles on LinkedIn, work on yours. Resume is your personality, it's your words. So the more you customize it, the more differentiated you will be amongst other applicants, right? And be conscious of the job you're applying for. I think I said this earlier also. The same resume will not work for all job application. Customization is the key to your resume getting shortlisted or you landing an interview.
Wow, that's such a key word for me, actually, Pragati. It's like this, right? I mean, we don't wear the same dress for every occasion. You are in a travel, you are in a travel attire. You go to a formal meeting, formal places, you then think about suiting yourself in formal wears. Similarly, at home, it's different. For festival, it's different. So why should it be the same resume for all 10 jobs that you're looking for? Unless they're exactly 100% ditto, same to same, which in real life doesn't happen very often. Yeah. Now, you mentioned a few things about these paid tools, right? Or online and offline tools. Continuing from there, what's your take on using paid service such as a resume writer, and what kind of applicants find it most useful?
I think no harm. Obviously, if you want to, please take up a resume writer if they are ready to spend enough time with you, right? Like I mentioned earlier, 15 minutes is not enough. They got to give you time, especially if you're coming back to work. They will need to delve deeper into what your personality is, what are the skills that are going to be still relevant 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line, right? They have to understand your challenges, right? And they have to help you overcome them during this exercise. So while it's resume writing, resume is about you, right? So resume makers cannot be automatic tech tools. They have to invest and come up with 2 or 3 strength areas. But what that also does is tells you what the roles that could be relevant for you as they exist when you start applying. Okay. So one tip from my side, I think just look at someone who's worked as a hardcore recruiter. I mean, recruiters have that eye, they know the shortcut tips, and they understand their tribe. So if you can catch one of an ex-recruiter, I think that would be my tip for you.
Fantastic, Pragati. Lovely summing up so many things together for us, right? There's a lot more when you actually put the pen to paper. If you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry. We are with you on this amazing journey of returnship.
Yes, absolutely. That's why our next episode is all about the actual process of writing your resume. Once you figured your storyline, once you figured what the theme of it is, and you understand basically what your experiences are. So tune in to know more in our next episode. But before that, it's time to say thank you to Pragati for her time and valuable insights to our listeners. I'm sure it's really, really useful for career attorneys to really take away a few tips from you. So thank you, Pragati, for your time and
My
inputs.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pragati. It was very
Thank you for having
insightful
me.
talking to you. Thanks for joining us.
Your feedback is our inspiration. Be generous with your rating. We love 5-star ratings because it will help us reach many more women who are looking for that inspiration to restart. And do share the link of our podcast in your networks. Look up our show notes to know more about our speaker and about our podcast.
We hope you liked hearing our podcast. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Flourish. Press that bell icon and follow our podcast. Do email us your comments at flourishme@gmail.com. Find out more about us at flourish.org. Remember to spell the she when you type flourish.
Why just survive when you can thrive and flourish in your career?
Until the next time, in our next episode, signing off.